Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So, this is another one of those videos that it might upset some people. It might get under the skins of some people, and or they may understand fully what I'm talking about because they've experienced it themselves, or they know that they have to be honest and say yes. I'm from that group of people or I'm from the same country and I know some of the practices and some of the cultural ways that we can conduct our lives and how we view other people from other backgrounds. And so I feel like I'm trying to be really honest here as possible. And I'm just going to start right off from the beginning. And I'm going to say that honestly, I don't have a problem with working around people, living around people from other cultures and backgrounds. And I don't have a problem with learning about other cultures and backgrounds and languages, even. But the problems that I do have is when people don't want to learn about who I am right in the beginning. They have formed an opinion based on a racial view of who I am and characterize me because of maybe something they saw in a movie or something they heard from someone else who has negative views about Blacks, African Americans, or people that are of color. And then that's when I become distant from people that I feel are going to be divisive, they're going to be destructive, they're going to try to do things to cover up lies that they've told. And then that's when I begin to have a problem, or if they feel as though that they need to use gangs to harass people out of a neighborhood simply because they're not from the same ethnic makeup or background, or at least they think. Let's stress that. They think they're not from, or they don't have any Black ancestors as they think. So this is a problem. The other issue is when you have people who make up stories and they lie and they're not being honest. And so you see that there's something going on in another country, and obviously it must be really, really bad. Anytime you have a group of people leaving by the thousands. But what makes this whole thing really fishy is that this group here has escorts. I'm trying to figure out who those people are. It almost feels like it's staged. It feels it feels when you see these articles about the migrant caravan, when they mention escorts and then they keep every now and then they'll put in a photo of that caravan or they'll have an update of that caravan. And so I heard recently, to bring it up to now, that they have traveled all the way from wherever and come to the U.S. Border, Tijuana, and this was around New Year's, and I guess it was much earlier, hours ago. And so it was said that they were looking for food. I had a lot of problems with this because anytime a country doesn't do right by its people, which, here in America, in the States, we've experienced a lot of, you know, um, how would you say it? I'm just going to go right on into, you know, in terms of Black people, a lot of times we feel like the justice system doesn't really always work for Black people. Um, Where the reason why I believe that if it's black people that we're consumers, or most of us are consumers if we're not really wealthy or famous, is because you're living paycheck to paycheck. We're caught up in the same drama that any other person from a background that lives paycheck to paycheck is caught up, where you're you're in that category where you're making money to survive. And that's pretty much how it's been for a lot of people. And that is now growing, and the ethnic makeup of that is also changing. It isn't just, African Americans or black people that are living paycheck to paycheck. There are other groups of people from different cultures that are also living paycheck to paycheck, and they are struggling. And what makes it sad is that you would think people would see that alone and say, outside of culture and outside of skin color and our different ethnic groups or whatever, we're all struggling. So we don't have time to be fighting with one another. But what's more disturbing about this here is, if you've always seen people that look like you've always been in a place where everybody does a certain thing that you do, or they eat the way you eat, or they talk the way you talk, and then you go to another place and you're not well informed on the other cultures, you're not really knowing how to treat other people, you come with that anger and that animosity. And when you come to another place, instead of treating people, respectfully, you treat people in a mean, harsh fashion, or a racial fashion, where it creates a lot of divisiveness and division. And so this can happen in a lot of ways, with neighbors, in the workplace, by people, ethnic cleansing, where they use gangs to try to make people leave the neighborhood. It's a form of intimidation to cause a group of people that you think that don't look like you or don't belong to move out. And so you use the gangs to intimidate that group. And a lot of that has happened in LA with black people who have lived in neighborhoods all their lives, where Hispanic gangs have used in forms of intimidation to scare people to move out of neighborhoods. And so these things are forms of, crime or illegal activity to try to, scare people or even kill people. The other things that I've noticed is in some of the workplaces where they have to make the other language known to be a priority. And so how this works is a little more harder to pinpoint what's going on unless you're on the outside and you see clear what's going on. Like, I have to backtrack and say, I don't have a problem when I'm learning about somebody else's culture and they're welcoming me into their culture. But when I'm not being welcomed in and it's a form of pushing my culture and who I am out, that's when it becomes problematic and divisive. And so it happens in some of these workplaces. And I have said that in videos, in my experience at working with certain places where it's in the field of education, where some of the schools in certain neighborhoods and areas have really seen a change over the years. Some people will say, oh, it's because the neighborhood is changing. That has nothing to do with anybody firing and hiring. Yes, it does, because I've lived here for many years in California, and I've seen where people will come in and they become irate and they demand someone to speak Spanish. And some of that is not because they're just a Spanish speaker. Some people do know English. They do know how to speak both languages, but they do that so that they don't have to deal with someone that's from an African American or even white, even. Sometimes I've seen that. They want to only deal with people who are Latino or Mexican, or you're Mexican American and you can speak the two languages and interpret for them. And so they feel if they do enough of that, it'll drive the English speakers away or the Black people away, so that they have to hire a group of people that aren't Black and that aren't white English speakers. And so I'm just breaking this down to kind of give you a, you know, an informative way of understanding where I'm coming from in this without any malice. And so this has happened in some of these workplaces where people will use these tactics to try to get people to hire a certain class or group of people so that they can get rid of others. And so, what about the English speakers? What about the Black people that have been to college and that have expertise? They don't want you there. At the schools, at the offices, at the places of business. And so it becomes this thing of avoidance and ignoring groups of other people to shut the door on you so that they can hire people that look like them, speak like them, and have all of their, ethnic identity as they do. And so it would be different if there was diversity, if you had people with different languages, people from different backgrounds, and you had some interpreters that could not only speak Spanish, but they could speak all of the other languages. You had interpreters for other languages like Farsi, Korean, Chinese, Mandarin. Maybe like if you have Black cultures that come, you have a large population of Nigerians and people that are coming from other African countries, and where's their interpreters? But you rarely see that. You only see people wanting the Spanish interpreters. And that very same person that claims they don't speak English, when they get done with that interpreter, they leave the room and you hear them talking English. And that's how you know that this is not right. Something is really wrong with this picture here. So I feel like there's a lot of lying going on, and they're not being honest in some of these media outlets. Like right here, it says the migrant caravan escorts draw more scrutiny. And I'm already telling you this because I believe this might have something to do with this whole fiasco of this caravan and all of these things going on. And it just seems like it's a back and forth fight. Now, I had an article that I read earlier that showed that Donald Trump, he supposedly had sent money to this country, and it was quite a bit, or supposedly he was proposed to send quite a bit of money. So it goes on to talk about this caravan. And so I'm going to say no thanks because it was asking me. I don't think this article is too long, but it says Tijuana, Mexico, thousands of Central Americans journeying towards the U.S. were 2,500 miles of terrain from their destination in October when they reached. Now I'm going to stop. 2,500 miles. Can baby bodies withstand that type of journey? Now, I'm going to add in some things along the way. If adults struggle to walk thousands of miles and they're sick and they're hungry, what do you think is going to happen to children? They're going to be sick before they even reach the US border. And so if they apprehend these parents or these children or whatever, then that kid is near dead. So I already want to say that I feel like there's lying going on about that, because the articles that they've been putting out is that the kids are thrown in these detention centers and they're mistreated. That may be going on or may not be going on. I don't know. I'm not there. I can't see it. So I'm not saying it isn't happening. But what I'm saying is you can't tell me that 2,500 miles walking that a child is not going to become ill. That's a lie right there. I want to expose that because that makes no sense. Even a regular person is going to get sick and going to be tired and exhausted. Their body is going to be worn out from all that walking. There's no way that's going to be successful. And not without some kind of illness or you're near dead. Some people can't even walk a mile without huffing and puffing and feeling like they're going to pass out. So 2,500 miles from the destination in October, when they reached a moment of decision. Should they press on towards the U.S. border? That was the question. Or should they stop and put down roots in Mexico where government offered to let them stay? Okay, so Pueblo Sin Fronteras, a group of activists. Here we go. These are the escorts. They're activists. Activists are people that are fighting for a group of people that they feel have been oppressed, which a lot of people have been oppressed. Even people that aren't from these countries that are right here in America have a history of oppression. And so, what have we done? Some of the same things. We have activists, and a lot of times, though, activists will fight or try to fight for the rights of these individuals. But see, these activists, they're escorting the caravan. It warned the migrants that the offer might be too good to be true and called a voice vote on whether to continue this. So let's keep going. So the crowd yelled and amid applause, and they kept going. So thousands are now in Tijuana and on the U.S. border. Now, along the way, I did see some people that looked like they had trucks and they had vans and they were carrying some of the people so that they weren't just all walking, but they didn't have enough vehicles to do all of that, but they were doing it, and I saw that in some videos and some pictures. And so just walking thousands of miles, even if you're driven a few miles or a couple of miles down the road, you're exhausted, you're hungry, you're thirsty, you're tired, you're probably going to suffer from the elements that you're exposed to because they're not living in houses. They're not being put up in hotels and luxury, lavish hotels, and they're in squalor. And so they kept going. Thousands are now in Tijuana and on the U.S. border where they are likely to be camped for months. And so, what comes with camping for months? They could be longer with no easy way to get into the US, creating what is fast becoming the humanitarian crisis in the overwhelmed city. So many blame Pueblos Sin Fronteros, or people without borders, made up of 40 US and Mexican activists. So they're encouraging these people to walk this long distance. They've been pumping their heads up to walk this long distance with these kids. They've been feeding all of these, people with what could possibly be the end of these folks' lives. So, critics, including former allies and some of the migrants themselves, say that Pueblos and Fronteros downplayed the dangers of such treks, especially for families and small children. Do you see what I'm saying? And so this makes it really divisive and problematic. It's almost as if people are doing this to fill these people's heads with an expectation of something that isn't going to be. And so they're also stoking people's, attitudes of anger through these activists that are trying to get these migrant people to walk that terrain and be months in and out. You're hungry, you're starving, you're trying to make it with these babies. And where's DPSS, Department of Social Services, in that? Where is, like they said, this is humanitarian crises. Where is, you know, the people that step up and take notice of this, how dangerous this is to put these families and these children through that situation. That's the reason why we have full on papers of children that are dying once they get to the detention centers. Because if the people are going to be rough with you in there and you've been walking for miles, you hadn't had that much food, nothing to drink, and your little baby bodies are suffering, you're sick. And I'll get to that in a minute. And so, what do you think is going to happen to these people if they're in that element and they're hungry and they're starving and they're struggling and they're walking and they don't have no promise of a better future? Everything is hostile. What does that do to little baby bodies? It stresses the bodies. We're worried about, over here in the States, we're worried about animals' rights. We're worried about everything else except the real rights. That's what they should be fighting for. The rights of these children, how they're being treated in these caravans. Some of the children I hear are not even with their original parents, that they're vulnerable to sex trafficking. Some of the women are vulnerable to sex trafficking. And so this is really sad. And then to douse these people's heads with these crazy dreams that aren't going to happen. And then they get here and then they realize there's so much hostility and the door is shut on them. It's evil. It is evil, pure evil. And we have experienced some of the racism that has happened with some of the people that are here, that I'm going to say this, some people that have come from some places who feel that now we want to make this place like where we came from, and we don't want to include blacks, we don't want to include whites, we don't want to include anybody else except people that look like us and speak like us. And so this is why people are upset about this, and how they lie to their own groups of people to fill their heads with dreams that aren't real. So it says here, critics, including former allies and some of the migrants themselves, say Pueblo Sin Fronteras downplayed the dangers of such treks, especially for families and small children, and misled the participants about how long they would have to wait on Mexican side to apply for asylum. So Adelaida Gonzalez, she's 37 years old, from Guatemala City, who joined the caravan with her 15-year-old son and neighbor, said that now she is in Tijuana and she wishes she had accepted Mexico's offer. See, now you're hearing some people speaking out saying that they're not really happy with all of this. And so she wishes she accepted Mexico's offer to stay and work in the southern Mexican state of Chiapas. Okay, so we were never told along the way that it would be so hard or this hard, said Gonzalez after seeing the border wall topped with razors, wires, and long waiting lists for asylum seekers. And so a Pueblos and Fronteros leader, Ireneo Mujica, empathetically rejected the criticism. Okay? So they're filling these people's head with things that aren't realistic. And this is what is fueling this caravan. So I knew it had to be something, because why would even regular people here, when you have some kind of motivation or goal, at the end it's there. You know what you're reaching for. But if you're just going on something and you don't know what's at the end, everything's uncertain, something's got to be fueling that. And so this is what's going on. These people are filling their heads with beliefs of things that aren't probably going to be realistic and not going to be conducive to what they had attributed to set out to achieve. So our commitment first and foremost was protecting the lives of migrants and giving them as much information as possible. Hika said, to blame the people who are helping is crazy. No, it isn't. Because if you are here in the US and you see what's going on and it ain't great over here, it's not a bed of roses, but you're lying to these people. You're not being honest. You're not telling them that it's a possibility they won't get asylum. It's a possibility that they won't get across the US border. And if they get across, they're going to be detained. there's a lot of uncertainties. There's a lot of hurdles that these people are not mentioning to them. So whose fault is it really? That's the question. So Pueblo Sin Fronteras, the founder, Roberto Corona, said that in the organization's defense, that attorneys along the way told the migrants they could be held in U.S. detention centers for months and possibly separated from their children. So in the end, he said that the migrants, many of whom were fleeing poverty and violence in Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, made their own decisions. And I don't think that all of them made their own decisions. I think that they were pumped up to make that long journey because they had the expectation they were going to be granted asylum, they were going to be given a better life. Those activists kind of fed that desire that they deep down had, but they really didn't know what was going on over here. And the people that know what's going on over here, they were just pumped up to be activists and to go out and lead this caravan and stoke them up and gas them up to get them to be all prepped up and build up their egos so they could think that they could just force their way in with it, not even knowing that there's detention centers, there's sex trafficking, people could die, people could lose their children, lose their families, be separated, be killed, murdered, jailed, anything, deported. There's a lot of things that they hadn't informed, I believe, these people on, and it's not fair to do this type of stuff. And so they know that the walls is very big and that they will not be very welcome in the US, but by many people, Corona said, but still they have hope of coming here that at least their rights will be more protected and that they will be able to make a living. Okay. And so we know what happens with all of that, don't we? People who are already here in the States that have dealt with people from these different places. What has been your experience? Some may say it's been positive, others not so positive. Others may say they incorporate the same thing that they're fighting, saying that people are racist towards their groups of people. They come here with the anger and animosity as to what is before them now, and then they inflict that on people that have already been here, lived here all their lives. You're not knowing what this person has gone through. You can only imagine. They haven't really voiced what they've experienced. We kind of, some people have read about the history of other people, but when they come to a workplace or they come somewhere else or a neighborhood and inflict their racial views on you because of the fact that they had to walk these miles and the door was shut on them. Do you know that other people here, they may not be Latino, they may not be Mexican, but they faced oppression and racism just the same, maybe worse. It's just done differently in a different form. And we still, as Black people and people of color, face racism on a daily. Sometimes we face it economically where we're being set back where we can't get houses, we can't get, home loans. We don't, if we have education, we're treated like we're not educated, like we're not able to lead anybody else because of our skin color. Some people don't want a Black person being their boss. So they've hired all these other people that either they're white or they look white. They're Mexican American and they look white and they're the boss. And so you get treated negatively because you're Black. And so this is what has happened at some of these workplaces in the States here. And so just because another group has experienced something doesn't mean that when they come here, nobody in the States have experienced anything. Like we haven't experienced our own set of oppressions and racism. We have. For many, 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 many generations we have, and still ongoing. You can see the numbers of Black people that have the police called on them for doing nothing at all, but just being Black. So To go on, it says that this is the fourth and the biggest caravan of Central American asylum seekers that Pueblos and Fronteros has helped reach Tijuana, a trek that angered President Donald Trump and prompted him to send troops to the border when the caravan crossed into Mexico. It numbered 7,000 and about 5,500 made it to the Tijuana area. And so Pueblos and Fronteros, this activist group maintains it simply accompanies the, see, they're trying to clean up their act now because people are focusing on them. You know, something's prompting these people to make this journey and risk getting their kids into in detention centers or separated or in sex trafficking. Like, what parent would do this? So this is what some people are saying. Like, if you were a parent, would you put your kids through that? Hell no, you wouldn't. Even if you were going through a lot of stuff, you protect your kids by any means necessary. You'd be doing everything you can, trying to tough it out, but you would never walk all that way, be hungry, starving, and putting your kids through that kind of death. You know, what kind of people are you? So Pueblos and Fronteros maintains it simply accompanies the migrants to protect their rights. Oh, really? We'll see. Okay, there's got to be more to the stories, but the organization clearly plays an essential role. It helped cater or it helped charter the route. Here we go. Now here the truth comes out. It chartered the route, arranged bus transportation, and negotiate with a Mexican official to provide protection. And it also raised more than 46,000 online for emergency housing and food. So this is how those people have been coming here. This is how they've been coming to. They're not telling the truth. You see now, little bits and pieces come out. See, now they had enough money to raise online for emergency housing and food. How come they couldn't send that money to them? They wanted Donald Trump to send a bunch of money and aid to these people. But this caravan group, Pueblos and Fronteros, how come that money that they raised for the emergency housing and food, instead of gassing these people up to come bust over here, how come they couldn't have used that money and give it to them in their country, try to protect them right where they were? Answer that question. See, somebody's not being honest here. Obviously, it's them. So, as the caravan crossed Mexico, the organization held nightly assemblies to decide the next day's destination. So, they were plotting this the whole time. So, it alerted towns to prepare for the migrants who camped in their squares. For the Central Americans, there were a feeling of safety in numbers. For decades, migrants crossing Mexico have been robbed, kidnapped, killed by gangs and corrupt officials. You see that? So they're risking putting those people through a situation like that. But traveling with the caravan was not without its risk. One migrant was killed when he fell off a truck, because remember I told you I saw them on trucks, on little vehicles to help the caravan walk. And so they had certain reporters out there with cameras showing you the caravan walking. So you would think that they are walking all those miles with all those babies, so you can feel sorry for them, you know but there's a brain behind all of this, igniting all of this. And so here it comes out. It's these activist people doing this to these people, putting them through harm's way, is what I'm going to say. That's what's happening. So it says that another one was run over and killed on a highway, and two were stabbed and strangled after leaving a Tijuana shelter. Others have been attacked with rocks by local residents angry over the mass arrivals of people. Last month, a march by the migrants in Tijuana to demand the U.S. accelerate its asylum process degenerated into violence. Demonstrations threw rocks, demonstrators threw rocks at the U.S. border agents and tore down fences, letting dozens rush through. U.S. authorities fired tear gas into Mexico, sending crowds that included children running and screaming. You don't think those kids aren't sick from all of that? See, this is what you think, it's just adults going. No, they're babies and children and old people that are caught up in all this craziness. So there is no reason to make these inhumane journeys. Alejandro Sol, Solinde, a Mexican priest recognized for his work with migrants, said of the caravans. So even a person of the same background is saying these are what you call inhumane journeys. This is inhumane. So Sergio Tamal, whose organization operates migrant shelters in the Tijuana area, said that he called Mujica to express concerns about the Tijuana march beforehand, and we all saw what happened. It was a disaster. So migrants said that they are grateful for all Pueblos and Fronteros has done, probably with the small efforts that they've done, of course, but not all of this murder and people dying and people getting into fights and all this uncertainty. But they were not prepared for the long wait in Tijuana, and some 3,000 people were already in the line to ask for asylum before the caravan arrived. So there were already people there asking for asylum before these caravans arrived. Can you imagine that? It would take days, weeks, maybe months before they even would see you. And the U.S. authorities are processing only about 100 claims per day at the crossing. You see that? Resulting in overflowing shelters in Tijuana. So this has got to be a health hazard as well. And the wait just got even longer because Trump administration announced Thursday that the asylum seekers at the border will now be forced to wait in Mexico while their cases slowly wind their way through the clogged U.S. immigration courts. So previously, migrants were allowed into the U.S. while their claims were processed. Esmeralda CU, Tijuana shelter manager, she said that many caravan members knew nothing about all the difficulties in getting asylum. You see that? These people, but you know what? The 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 activists knew. A lot of them look like they're some of them are from here. They knew what was going on. They didn't tell those people. They gassed them up. They're like, yeah, come on, let's get this caravan going. Let's go over here. Where are we going to protect you? And they're very extremely militant folks trying to get these people over here, and they're not telling them what they're going to encounter before they come this way. All that long distance, I'd be mad at those activist people. And so, and the wait got longer. Because the immigration courts are clogged. And so it says that previously migrants were allowed into the U.S. while their claims were processed, but now it says that they didn't even know about how hard it would be to get over here and get asylum. So they come in desperation, and so they hear what they want to hear, she said. As for their escorts, it seems like they are putting the migrants at great risk. Let me read that again. Esmeralda CU, a Tijuana shelter manager, said the migrant members or caravan members knew nothing about the difficulty in getting asylum. They come in desperation, and so they hear what they want to hear, she said. As for their escorts, it seems like they're putting them and the migrants in great risk, at a great risk, okay? Corona Pueblos and Fronteros founder said that the caravan served their purpose, but that he doesn't foresee the organization accompanying any more of them. Okay? Because people are now upset with them because they know this has been a shit show from the beginning. So we need to find out how can we reach the hearts and minds of the American people and the Mexican people, and mostly the policymakers who come up with a permanent solution, he said. And so every time you click on your internet, don't you see a story that tries to make you feel sorry for one of these people? And it's sad, and you probably do feel some type of way. But now we know, getting to the bottom and the crux of this, who has ignited this whole charade, you know, to take place of these caravans of people that are just trying to bust in over here. These people didn't just one day get together and get in a room and say, we're going to make a caravan. We're going to bring babies and children and women and old people. We're going to risk walking miles, not having food, starving to death, getting thrown in detention centers, getting our kids hurt, sex trafficked, getting the women sex trafficked and raped, getting the kids raped. Maybe there's some pedophiles, some gang members in this crowd. We don't know, but we're going to make this journey because we're coming to the U.S. with hopes and dreams. That's bullshit. It's straight out bullshit. And anybody that sits up there and believes this, you're crazy to believe something like this. These people were put in a position where somebody was fueling the fire of this and getting them all fired up and all psyched up to do this crazy stuff. Pumping their heads full of we're gonna do this. You know, we're Mexican or we're Guatemalan or we're the Latinos. We're gonna make it over here. This is our country. We're gonna take it back and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that and stuff. And they get these people in a position that is uncertain. They don't know if they're gonna have a pot to pee in, a window to throw it out of. They don't know if their kids are gonna make it, if they're gonna even have their families. They could die. They could get killed. They could be sex trafficked. They could have accidents like we've been hearing, falling off a truck and getting crushed. All kinds of stuff can happen. Die from starvation. And oh, let's look at the issue here when they talk about diseases. Okay. And so also the treatments that some Americans have had with people that have been here, and they think that somehow that their group of people is superior over another. So there was a question that somebody had proposed. They said, "Are Mexicans racist against blacks?" So somebody said, yes. In fact, they can be more racist with white people at times. Okay, so this is somebody white saying that they've had an experience as well. I've known this lady, and well, my mother knew her, but still, she was working at a market. And then slowly more Latinos got the jobs there, and the boss was Latino. My mother's friend, a white woman, did not get treated very well by the other employees, and she's not working there anymore. So they don't just do racism on the black folks, they do it on whites. Okay, so all because she doesn't speak Spanish. Yes, that is what has been happening here. It's been going on. He changed all the applications, and then I don't know who gassed him up about this, but it was said that they went to court to fight for a white status. That's why when I was online, I'd see these little comments that we are the new white people. So all you other white people, they're kicking you out too. They don't want you around either. So all because she doesn't speak Spanish. Another thing, this apartment we live at, the guy that goes around cleaning the snow off only the white people's cars, which means the black residents' cars are still buried in snow. Latinos aren't only racist to blacks or non-Spanish speakers, they're racist to other Latinos who aren't from their own country. And I've seen that as well. Okay, so like these two were arguing over each other at my school because one was Brazilian, the other was Ecuadorian. The Latin boy will only act chivalrous towards the Latinas or white girls, and sometimes not even the other Latinas, but only white girls. A friend's mother from Argentina doesn't talk to blacks. A woman started yelling at my mother for bumping her precious car by accident. She screamed at her in Spanish. It goes on to say that this may sound racist, but honestly, I don't think that they should immigrate here that much anymore unless they learn to treat people with respect. We've been treated much better by Indian, Bangladesh, and Nepalese immigrants than the Latino people, and they know to be racist. USA born Latinos in general are a little less racist than the ones coming from these countries. So I just wanted to bring that out so other people can understand where I'm coming from with that. Not trying to be mean or anything, but I'm saying that other people, even if they're not black, they've had some negative experiences with these people. And so I don't think people really get into this and they don't talk about it because there's a fear. Oh, what if they find out I said this? Oh, you're just being honest. You're telling the truth of what you had to experience. How can you get in trouble for saying something that you actually went through? I can say a number of things I've been through with people like this at the workplace and outside of the workplace. I can probably write a nice thick notebook full of incidences. things that have happened, you know. And so I don't even care to take it that long to go through all of that. But some of the same things that other people are complaining about, I've had those experiences. Let's just say that. Number one, I mentioned the neighborhoods. You know, I even saw where I had made a video about the gangs in LA, and this movie star lady, she comes out and says, "Oh, my family's a gang." She ha ha ha. She must have saw my video. So she thought that, because she speaks Spanish a lot and everything, and she's his Latina movie star or actress lady. And so she must have ran across my video. She had to, because her little comment came out, and I was like, yeah, she must have saw that video. Because I know regular people and even famous people, they probably look at YouTube. People say they don't, but they do, and they see stuff. And so she probably saw it and got offended by it. Well, it was true, and I'm not taking it back because that's what I've experienced. Obviously, you don't experience it because you're not on your shoes. The shoe is not on the other foot, is it? So I'm going to show you something here. Okay. Okay. Right away, what comes up is Mexico's ethnic cleansing of blacks. And take a look at all of the articles that state this. One, Latino gang leader convicted in LA, ethnic cleansing campaign. Ethnic cleansing of blacks in LA. Some people have been talking about it, even on YouTube, people I don't even know. List of ethnic cleansing campaigns, okay? And so there is something here that says there's a campaign to ethnically cleanse certain places, and the Mexican mafia was involved in it. Latino gang charged with racial cleansing in California town. That is out of ABC News. When Mexicans feared American immigration, Politico, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Study reveals racial inequality in Mexico, disproving the race blind. Okay. And while skin color in Mexico ranges from white to black, most people, 53%, identify as mestizo or mixed race in Mexico, and they talk about the inequalities that go on there. The black people erased from history. More than 1 million people in Mexico are descended from African slaves and identify as black, dark, or Afro Mexican, even if they don't look it. I already know that's what it's going to say. Mexican mafia underlinings are underlings who tried to stamp out black people. Blah blah blah. There's these. This was from back in 2013. Okay, Latino gang members firebomb black residents to drive them out of neighborhoods. Okay, and this was in Compton. They were calling themselves trying to do stuff like that. The Mexican versus the Black American ethnic war is a ticking time bomb. That's out of the dailyjournalist.com. I could pick any one of, and it goes on. The list goes on. If I click 2, 3, 4, there's other pages that talk about these things. They want to act like this stuff is not happening, but it has. It's happened years ago. It's happened. There's a history in California of the Mexican gangs. And so they use these gangs to intimidate people who are not trying to do any harm to them. So I wasn't lying. I wasn't making it up. And whoever this movie star lady, whatever, all these other people who are in denial, go take a hike, because you're not being honest either. It doesn't help the situation to sit up there and lie and make like the stuff hasn't happened and we haven't experienced. It's easy for them to say that we make up stuff and we're fabricating stuff or we're just crazy or delusional, but we are black and we go through oppression on the daily. We have gone through a lot of stuff at the workplace, at schools, sometimes even the universities. We've gone through stuff. They don't like it that you know stuff. They don't like you to learn their language. If you know Spanish, they don't want you to know Spanish, even if you were born there. Think I'm lying? I had a friend, she said that there were two women, they were from one of these countries. And they were Latinas, they were Black Latinas. They knew how to speak Spanish fluently from their countries. And when they came here, they were met with animosity from people from the similar country because they happened to be of a different skin color hue. They called them monkeys and told them to go back to Africa and said, "You shouldn't be speaking our language." And they turned around and told them, "Look, we're from that country. We're born from that country, and we can speak it anytime we want." So these things do happen. And so I just want to make that clear here. And they do have a tendency to do this ethnic cleansing. So I'm not going to read all of this. I'm just going to go into this part where it talks about this ethnic cleansing campaign thing. Okay, so I'll go to an article because I'm not too sure about the Wikipedia. Probably list out a lot more stuff. But let's start with this article. This was in 2013, January 15. It was Latino gang member, a leader convicted in LA of ethnic cleansing campaign. So this is where a lot of this hatred and this anger comes from these groups, people. So a Latino street gang leader and his son were sentenced in federal court on Monday, a lengthy prison term for their role in the years of long campaign of racist terror and ethnic cleansing targeting African Americans in and around LA area, okay, LA City. So since at least the mid 1990s, Latino street gangs across Los Angeles County have been targeting, beating, and sometimes killing blacks in an attempt to drive them out of the region. So just before Christmas of 2006, Cheryl Green, 14-year-old, she was playing with her skateboard with a group of friends just south of 206th Street in Los Angeles, and this is South LA, was shot dead in broad daylight by two men who approached the group and opened fire without saying a word. Two members of the 204th Street gang were later arrested in the killing. Green's death shook the city. A few weeks after her funeral, Mayor Antonio Villagrosa, law enforcement official, and the community activist held a news conference and vowed a crackdown on the gang, 10th gang, 10th Street gang. Six of them were Latinos. The 204th Street and East Side Torrance gang. Okay, these are all Hispanic and Latino gangs out here. Okay, that have used terrorism to drive out certain individuals. And so this has gone on. This article was 2013. So Miss Thing or whatever these people are, oh, I got a family and they're a gang. You make a joke out of this, but we regular people who live here have experienced this. Your family obviously hasn't if you're making jokes over it. And this is a Latino woman. She's supposed to be famous. She's actually, it's crazy because she's the one that was on I forget the name of this, and it's a funny show, but I'm not so crazy about her. You know, she made a mockery of the video that, like I'm making this up. Like this is not happening. Yeah, maybe not happening to you because you're a Latina. That's why. So it goes on to say the 204th Street and the East Side Torrance gangs have contributed to the rise in racially motivated murders and other crimes, the mayor office said in the press release. And so much of the racially inspired murder and mayhem was and is being directed from far away from the streets and the hills of Los Angeles. As the intelligence report detailed in the winter of 2006 issue, the powerful Mexican mafia, a prison-based gang, had given the green light to many Latino gangs it controls in the Southern California to terrorize and murder Black people as part of their effort to drive them out of the city. So in these latest chapters of race and hate in Southern California Sunshine, 51 members of the Azusa Street Gang have been indicted and convicted for 2011 for terrorizing African Americans in Azusa area, a city about 48,000 in the San Gabriel Valley, according to the Los Angeles Times. On Monday, Santiago Chico Rios, a leader of the gang, was sentenced to 19 years in prison and 7 months, 19 years and 7 months in prison by the U.S. District Judge Gary A. Fess, according to the Times, and his hearing impaired son, Louis Lil Chico Rios, was given 10 year sentence. Both had pleaded guilty to conspiring to attack African Americans and chase them out of Azusa, a gang policy established in 1992, the paper said. Listen, a gang policy. It's a campaign to drive blacks out of Los Angeles and all of these California neighborhoods. So I'm not BSing you when I said ethnic cleanse is not only going on in the neighborhoods, it's going on in the workplaces. I have seen it with my own eyes. In the workplace, they've gotten really savvy with it. They know how to use words, they know how to say things so that they don't get caught. And if the boss is Mexican American, whose side do you think he's going to be on? Not the black people's side. He's a part of it too. He wants only people that looks like him there. And that is what I have seen at some of these places. Not all the places are doing it, but there are some that are doing it. I'm just going to be honest and I'm going to be frank forward. So this is Southern Poverty Law Center that reported this. They deal with situations, hate maps, hate watch, gangs that are a part of this terrorism. We have terrorism on our own soil right here. And we also have it coming here in the form of ethnic cleansing campaigns by these gang members who have put the green light out since 1992 to terrorize black people who are legal citizens of this country and been here all their lives, worked, gone to school, just like anybody else. I'm going to end this. I'm just so sick of seeing this BS about this caravan. And they made it look like these people just somehow sat in a room and they decided to put themselves in harm's way. And we're finding out something altogether different, that they have a group of escorts who are activists. And who knows, they might be a part of some of these gangs that I was looking at here that gas these people up to make that journey all the way over here and risk their lives. Some of them have died and been killed in sex traffic and split up families behind this craziness. And so I just thought I would bring that out because this seems like it gets no better. So anyway, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to switch over because this is a sick, sick thing that's happening. So one day ago, what we saw, this is out of Newsweek, a photograph of the migrant caravan in the U.S.-Mexico border. It's an opinion piece, but they had a video. It's just so sickening to see this stuff going on constantly. You know, look at this. Look at how crazy this is. Look at how crazy this is. Okay? They climb up banks and nearly dry Tijuana River and attempt to make their way past police and blockades. How would you put old people and kids through something like this? You know? Who would look at you want your kids to have to go through this? Look at this. Look at this picture. Look at this. Look at these kids, these poor kids, having to go through this kind of stuff. This is insanity. You know, these kids aren't safe. The women aren't safe. You know, look at that. They can shoot. They've been ordered to shoot. You want to put your kids through that? No. Who wants to put their kids through that? Okay, and so we know what's happening. There is a lot of conjecture about the lack of context in the media in 2018, but you all take pride in providing context in your images. Okay, the photojournalist, what do you see as the importance of context when covering immigration in this current media climate? Okay, the policies and the rhetoric stemming from the White House were harsher this year in line with the Trump administration of zero tolerance immigration policy. But what's crazy about this whole thing is just the whole thing. You know this is bad. You know this is bad. Why are these people by themselves doing this? I That's what I was saying. I don't believe this. I believe somebody gassed them up to put them through this stuff. Yes, there should be equality. What about when people come here and how they treat others? And who in those crowds of people, who do you think's in there? Do you know if all those people want to just work at a job? They want a nice home. They want to get along with blacks and whites and different. They want diversity. Do you think any of those people? Some of them might. Some of them don't. Do you think any of those people might have been murderers, killers? They could have been a part of a gang. We don't know. See, these are the lies. They don't tell you everything, and that's what's upsetting about this stuff. And then you got to see this kind of force right here. This makes it look like U.S. are they're big bad bullies. You know, there's something obviously going on that regular people here don't know about, and somebody's not telling the truth. There's something not going on. So it's this Marshall Project goes on and talks about it. Numerous reports of abuse, over 60 million in legal settlements paid out to CBP. This is crazy. This is crazy. It's craziness. But anyway, with that being said, I'm going to let this go. I just think it's a fiasco and it's waste of money. It's a waste of time. It's gotten out of control and they need to do something about this. They really do. They need to figure out how that they can help. And those activists, shame on you. You raised 46. It said in that other article I was reading, they raised money for the caravan to have housing and lodging, emergency shelter. How come you didn't give those people money over there? How come you didn't help them when they were there? What's going on in that country? How come nobody can step in and do anything about that? I don't know. It's just a lot of unanswered questions, and it's really enraging, you know. And then we don't know if people here in the States are going to be met with more violence and more racial discrimination coming from another place. People, you don't know if everybody wants diversity. They might have been used to a situation where they didn't really have a black identity there, or if it was, don't talk about your black side of your family. Just talk about everybody who looks like they're something else. You know, we don't know what the mindset of people are. And so I just thought it was, an important thing to bring that out. And I'm not saying this to piss people off or to start any trouble, but I feel like there's a lot of questions that aren't answered, a lot of things that we don't know what we're going to encounter when we already have problems that are already have happened here with people from different places like that who they're not when they come they haven't been the most welcoming to people of African American or some white people. They haven't been the most welcoming people to. So with that being said, I'm gonna let this video go. What are your thoughts, comments, and within reason? It's like, you know, like I said, I'm okay with learning about different people, getting to know different people. As a matter of fact, I like learning about different people and what their customs and things are. But what's sad is when they don't want to learn about people of color, black people, and they feel like we're all in one bucket. That's what's sad. And they treat us like less than the dirt on the ground. That's what I'm talking about. With that being said, I'm gonna let this video go and thanks for listening.